Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Dallas Social Toastmasters. It is September 9th, that is, of 2021. This is, of course, Dallas Social Toastmasters, our regular Thursday meeting. We've taken care of role assignments and our evaluators are all ready. A couple of brief things for those of you who might be unfamiliar with Zoom. Not that we have a whole lot of those tonight, but just to get used to it. Most of you will have icons up at the top. We have a timer tonight, and if you go into the little box of the timer and hit the ... you will find a pin button to be able to pin them so that you can guarantee that your timer is visible. If we have few enough people, there's also a view button to the right of all of the icons so that you can select speaker gallery or immersive. And I'm not even sure what immersive does. That's interesting. I think that probably gives you even more than gallery, is my bet. But that way you can select whether or not you're going to get the person speaking or everyone. And if everyone happens to sit on the screen at the same time, then you've also got access to the timer and visibility there. I'm going to try to keep people muted most of the time, just because it usually works better. If I happen to notice a lot of noise, I'll quiet you down. And I think that covers all of that. Let's talk a little bit about our agenda tonight, how to find it. Our agenda is findable via, whoops, let me go back. I had to show it to somebody earlier. DallasSocialToastmasters.com, that's our website. Divided into 3 columns. The third column is member section. First link in the member section is current agenda. When you click on current agenda, it brings up this agenda for September 9th, today. If you would like, you can certainly bring up a browser, especially if you happen to have 2 screens, put it on another screen so that you can follow along with everybody that is going to be performing a duty. As Zoom Master, I'll go ahead and tell you that we have a couple of changes tonight real quickly on this. The Grammarian duty is going to be performed by Justin Faust. That was actually what was originally advertised. The agenda is different than that. So Grammarian will be Justin Faust, and I will be taking Justin's position of counter tonight instead. Justin will remain as vote counter, and I will remain as timer. I believe that that covers everything that I need to cover. Our Toastmaster tonight is Lee King. If you would, please take it away, Lee.
All right, great, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Dallas Social Toastmasters. Tonight, the theme is evaluating progress. I think that this is a great theme for heading into contest season. As many of y'all know, we have a couple of people that are going to be competing in the contest this Saturday, the area contest. And so tonight, I really want everybody to just take a little extra time to focus on the speakers and providing feedback, because it's always important when you're going into competition. Of course, pretty much everybody knows when it comes to providing feedback, you always want one positive and one thing that someone can improve on. Sometimes a few positives and a couple of areas to work on, but it's always better to have a few more positives than areas to work on. In most cases, it's also always recommended to end on a positive note. With that, I will go ahead and introduce our duty holders for this evening, which will be Mark Schroeder. Will you please go ahead and introduce your duties to us?
Certainly, Lee. First of all, one of my duties is going to be that of timer. As a timer, I will be timing the prepared speeches, the table topics, and the evaluations tonight, each of which has got different timing requirements. In general, our prepared speakers, they're usually 5 to 7, and I believe that's what they're all, well, actually, they will be 5 to 7 for the second and third speech. The first speech is an icebreaker. That one is typically shorter at 4 to 6 minutes.
Actually, the tall tale Mark's speech is
Oh,
be
his
3
is
to
shorter
5.
too. That's right. That's right. Thank you so much. So the first speech is 4 to 6. Second speech is 3 to 5. Third speech is going to be 5 to 7. So we have a smorgasbord of times tonight. Each of our speakers has a 30-second leeway on both ends of their speech. So as a, for instance, just in the 5 to 7, you actually qualify at 4:30 before you get the green. and you actually have until 7:30 after the red has gone up. But the timers will go up to green at 5, yellow at the midpoint 6, and then red at 7. And similarly for the other speaking times. With regard to the table topics, there is no leeway on the front. The times are 1 to 2.5 minutes. And so you must make 1 minute. If you make, it's 1 to 2 minutes, right?
For
Table topics.
Yes, 1 to 2 minutes. Yes.
1 to 2. Yeah, I said 2.5. 1 to 2 minutes, but you do have until 2.5. You get the red at 2 minutes, but you still have until 2:30 to finish up. So the red flag is your cue to finish up. Finally, our evaluators, that's 2 to 3 minutes. You again will qualify at 1:30 without seeing the flag. At 3 minutes, you will, at 2 minutes, you will be qualified with the green, 2.5 yellow, 3 red. And you have until 3:30 to finish for that. I'll prepare a report of who goes under or over time after each of the events. You have to hit time in order to qualify for one of the ribbons. All right, my second duty tonight is going to be as all counter. What the all counter does is listen for verbal crutches. I'm going to listen for things like so anything that distracts from your message rather than adding to your message. I will be making note of everything that I hear. Normally when we are in person for the prepared speeches, we are silent and we are noisy immediately with a clicker at the instant we hear a crutch word otherwise. That doesn't seem to work very well on Zoom. It doesn't take control of the microphone fast enough. So we're just going to do a report at the end of what we hear with regard to all of the verbal crutches. And so that report also will be at the end of the meeting. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. Next, we have Grammarian and vote counter, which would be Justin. Justin, please introduce your roles.
Yes, so I'm Grammarian. Word of the day is, hold on. Sorry about that, guys. It's Oracle, but I got it printed out. So let me share it real quick. Yes.
Kagan has it above his screen or on his spectrum.
Well, I printed it out, so I have to show it. Word of the day is Oracle. Do the definition. A priest or priestess acting as a medium through whom advice or prophecy was sought from the gods in classical antiquity. The second definition is a response or message given by an oracle, especially an ambiguous one. This must be utilized during the table topics to qualify. Also, so that's me as a grammarian. I'm also the vote counter. I will be collecting votes for prepared speeches, table topics, evaluations, and also the big 3. Please send it to me. In case of a tiebreaker, I would break it, but we have 10 people on, so 9 will vote, so that won't happen. Back to you, Toastmasters.
All right, great. And then I will be posture monitor for this evening. I'll be looking for any awkward postures that could be distracting from the message. I'll also be looking at everyone's camera views. If you're out of view or something like that, I'll mention that because I feel like in the virtual world, in many ways, that's a big component. If you're not able to see someone, their face is chopped off or something like that, then it would be worth noting that. And also, we do have one guest for this evening. Her name is Tiffany. We remember Tiffany from before. So we will definitely hear from her after the meeting. Good to see you again. We actually have a fairly busy night tonight. We have 3 speeches, 1 icebreaker and 2 contest speakers for this evening. One thing that I would like to challenge everybody to do, especially since we're on Zoom, is to leave a private message to the speaker, especially our speakers that are progressing on to the contest, so they have something to take away. There are different styles of speaking, of evaluating. It's, of course, the 3-2-1 method, which a lot of people use. There's a saw, heard, felt method where you report on what you saw, what you heard, and how you felt after hearing the speech. There's the Oreo method to see where you say something that was positive, then maybe something that was a little sticky, could improve upon, and then finally one thing that stands out to you as being another really good positive note. With that, I will turn to our evaluator for this evening, Dagan. Dagan, will you please introduce us to Wesley's speech?
All right, so Wes is doing his very first speech, which would be his icebreaker. So it's pretty much, getting to know about Wes and his speaking abilities, and I'll just be basically evaluating based on that to see what he's, currently good at and what I think he needs improvement on, and give my evaluation about that. The icebreaker can be pretty much really anything he wants to speak about, himself, or pretty much anything he wants to speak about. It's just good to know his abilities currently and how well he can speak at this point in Toastmasters. Back to you, Toastmaster.
All right, please help me welcome Wesley Edwards. Wesley.
Wes,
Hey,
just
how's it going?
a quick remark. Make sure that you have your timer, me, visible.
Okay. Are we waiting for something?
Nope, just to make sure that you had have me visible.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You can start anytime.
Oh, okay. So the title to my icebreaker is Creativity, Evolution and Creativity, a study. Picasso created 50,000 works of art. Leonardo da Vinci created everything from classical paintings to inventions, made scientific discoveries, was the world's first anatomist. Einstein, he made changes to our fundamental understanding of the universe with his theory of relativity that he came up with on his breaks at his job at a patent office. What do all of these people have in common? Well, they are all geniuses, clearly. But when I was younger, I was trying to ask myself that on a deeper level. Why is it that some people can be so exceptionally creative and so exceptionally accomplished in the field it is that they choose? That was what I asked myself. And so when I was younger, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, I became really obsessed with reading biographies of people that were exceptional at whatever it is they did. And this last year, I've had the opportunity to start my first business in illustration. So a lot of the people it is that I read on were artists. So I came across this book and I wanted to talk about it for the icebreaker because it had such a huge impact on me when I was growing up. And the book is called Origins of Genius, a Darwinian View of Creativity. And what the book's premise is basically about, it's this author, Dean Simonton, what he does is he went through and read the biographies of like hundreds of leaders, inventors, scientists, artists, and he was trying to figure out, what do these people have in common? What kind of like lessons can we take in order to understand how to get better leadership skills or how to get more creative, is what it is that I was interested in. And so he uses the analogy of the Darwinian process of variation and selection to explain what genius is. In his theory, the artist or the scientist generates a wealth of ideas and then subjects these ideas to aesthetic or scientific judgment, selecting only those that have the chance to survive and reproduce. Then those get released into the culture. They reproduce in the minds of other people or combine with other ideas in order to bring more culture. And one of the first things it is that he talks about, or one of the first things you notice when you read through this book, is it seems like, for the most part, these people that are just so exceptional at what they do, they're just out producing everybody around them. They're outworking everyone. Beethoven, for example, he supposedly created something like 50% of all of the music that was created at that time between him and all of his peers. So he was outdoing all of his peers, right? And those 50,000 Picasso pieces, well, actually, that is only what's on the market, because what is in the Picasso vault is another 100,000 drawings that he did that they will not release to the public, because if they do, it'll drive down the value of everything that's already on the market now. So these people create an insane amount of variety, and then we only ever remember them for like 1 or 2, 3 different things, you know? So that's not to say that in order to tap into our own genius or our own oracle, that all we have to do is hunker down and outwork everybody else. I mean, there is some truth to the fact that, you know, the more swings you take, the more of a chance you have of knocking it out of the park. But this is also kind of a naive interpretation of the data. And that's what it is that I really enjoy about this book. It's not really a pop psychology self-help book, because he goes into all of the other factors that ended up influencing what made a genius. So, for example, the vast majority of scientists that did exceptional in their field, they were usually either immigrants from another country, or they had lost a parent by the age of 12, or they had lost both parents by the age of 12. So there seems to be like deep alienation that comes from these people's backgrounds. Also, genius and madness are closely related, as the saying goes. And he finds out as he goes through these people's biographies that the vast majority of artists were either closely related to somebody who had schizophrenia, or they had some variation of schizophrenia or autism themselves. And he makes an interesting theory that essentially this is giving an evolutionary advantage. That's why mental illness exists in our gene pool, is because it, on the one hand, it could disable you, but on the other hand, it could also give you an evolutionary advantage in terms of being more creative, being able to figure out things in different ways. So these were just a couple of highlights from this book. If you have any interest in anything like this, I highly recommend it. It's something that had a huge impact on me whenever I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and before I made a career in illustration. And it completely expanded my worldview. So there we go.
Thank you, Wes. If we could go ahead and just take 1 minute.
So you're on mute, Lee.
Sorry, thought I had mute off. At this time, if everyone would just take a quick minute to write Wes a note, private message. Try to point out at least one thing that you thought he did well and one thing that he could work on between now and his next speech. All right. At this time, we will now move into our contest speakers for the evening. We will be doing a round robin evaluation for both of these speakers. And obviously the main objective for both speakers is to win the contest. But in order to do that, they do have to qualify on time. And we'll also be paying especially careful attention to their use of vocabulary, their hand gestures, and anything else that will help make their speech more competitive in a competitive field. We'll start with our Tall Tales speaker for this evening because Tall Tales is the first speech in this week's contest, and Mark Sims will be representing Dallas Social Toastmasters for the Tall Tales contest. Please help me welcome Mark Sims.
Once again, Mark, please make sure that your timer, me, is visible.
My first day back on site at work was last week. I've been working at home since March of 2020, and I was ready. I was excited. I was pumped. Wanted to see the guys in person again, the hand slaps again, the jokes. First day, it started off bad. My access badge into the building didn't work. I tried to sneak in behind a stranger, but security caught me. They were about to haul me away until a few coworkers interceded and vouched for me, but not before they got a picture of me in handcuffs. So bad start. I went into our office and I'm thinking it's great to be back. This is so cool. No, it wasn't cool. It was stifling. The air conditioning was off again, so I'm sweating. But we always had a refrigerator full of drinks, full of cold snacks. I went there, no refrigerator. It was taken away during the pandemic. So I'm not doing well. I go to my cubicle. It's my home base at work. And it looked the same. It felt comfortable. And then I saw my best friend at work, Jerry. I mean, we are tight. We started work 10 years ago, same day. And I said, hey, Jerry, what's up? But he was accepting a cake that said, we'll miss you. I said, hey, man, what's the deal? And he said, Mike, Martin? No, Mark, what's up? And he said, well, I just took another job. Bye. Now, that was kind of abrupt, so maybe he wasn't my best friend there. But then I saw Andy from 2 cubicles down, and I love to give him grief. He is always complaining about his terrible commute from Frisco to our office in Arlington. And it's like I would always do, I would point it at him and said, you should have moved to Arlington a few years ago like I did. At that exact second, we get a message over the loudspeaker. We're about to have a meeting on our office move from Arlington to Frisco. So everyone pointed and laughed at me like I had done to him, and only it wasn't near as funny. I finally started to work, and I had been out the week before. So I turned on my computer. There were 387 emails from the prior week. Most of them marked urgent, second, third request. I finally started on one where I was supposed to justify my job and my salary for 2022. And I'm typing away and I'm thinking, man, I am smoking. But literally I was smoking. My computer was on fire. So someone grabbed the fire extinguisher, put it out, but not before I lost everything. So I'm upset. I took an early lunch to try and calm down. I went to the building deli that always had great hamburgers, great desserts. Only sign on the door said closed permanently. I asked a passerby, hey, what's up? And he said, hey, buddy, there's been a pandemic. Some businesses have closed. You know, you can go on the internet and find out about this, which I thought he was a smart aleck. I went back to work and I'm plowing through all my emails and all my projects and things that are due, deadlines, and I am seriously getting stressed. And a supervisor came by and said, hey, Mark, the big guy wants to see you. You're up for promotion. Now, our big guy is the CEO of our business. He's a loudmouth, foul-mouthed jerk. You don't want to see him if you have an option not to. But he was nice. He said, Mark, you did a great job during the pandemic. You were our most productive offsite guy. So here's your promotion. Now, I've been in charge of sales. Now, I'm going to now be in charge of new products. And I asked, okay, what about the transition from the old job? And he said, well, you can handle both. So I'm sputtering. I said, that's 100 hours a week. He said, yeah, you can handle it, but we're going to take care of you. He told me about my raise. A minute later, I left his office. Someone said, how did it go? And I screamed, that cheapskate gave me a 10-cent an hour raise for double the work. And I'm going to punch the guy in the nose. She turned pale. The big guy was right behind me. He's holding a $10,000 bonus check that he tore up. He called security. I'm escorted out. So it was the worst day at work ever. I'm sorry I went back, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mark. Everyone, please take a moment to send a private message to Mark Sims on his speech. Do keep in mind this is for contests. So try to really focus on one thing that he did well and at least one thing to work on. Although we will give a round robin at the end of the meeting. Our final speaker for this evening will be our humorous speech contestant. Karen Lee will be representing us at the area contest. And so her main objective is to give a humorous speech, 5 to 7 minutes. Everyone, please help me welcome Karen.
Who wants to go to the hospital during a pandemic? Nobody. Well, on July 17th, I found myself needing to go to the hospital. I'm going to tell you about learning how to breathe, learning to drink 7.5 glasses of water, and adding more salt to my food. On that particular day, I put my backpack and my suitcase by the door. My suitcase opens like a book. I bent down to put something into my backpack, and I tripped over my suitcase and fell back. I hit my arm went through the pane of the window. Looked down, and I'm bleeding. I grabbed my red sweater and I wrapped up my hand. I got myself cleaned up and already needed to go to the hospital, so I entered the emergency room at Presbyterian. The emergency room doctor comes in. He has an injection of lidocaine he puts into my hand, and I jump. He jumps just like a grasshopper, about 6 feet away. Found out I'm gonna need to go into the hospital, and as soon as they drop an IV into my arm, my sodium level was at 120. It's supposed to be 135. And they're taking sodium levels every 2 hours. That very first Sunday, I have about 6 doctors in the room. 2 of them are residents. They come in and they say, we've never seen anybody that looks so good for such a low sodium. I'm not used to all that attention. And then the night nurse comes in, and I was telling her, I said, I went to get a cup of coffee. And I said, I was told I could only have a limited amount to drink. So all I could do is smell the coffee. And she cracks up. Well, the phlebotomist was coming every couple of hours to take blood. I finally just said, just take me. As I handed them my arm. And I learned to just breathe. After a while, how do you make a hospital visit seem fun? Well, I also learned that I was only supposed to have 7.5 glasses of water. One of the reasons that my sodium levels are so low is due to a medication I was taking, which was discontinued in the hospital. I also found out that I could have just about anything I wanted to eat when I was in the hospital. The only thing I had to curb was the amount of fluid that I drank. The kidneys are very important, and one of the things they do is take care of electrolytes. But like I said, in conclusion, the 3 things that I learned were that just to breathe, drink 7.5 glasses of water, and I learned that I can add extra salt to my food. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Karen. Everybody, please take a moment to write a private message to Karen. At this time, I'll go ahead and call for a timers report. Mark Schroeder, did our speakers qualify on time?
Wes's time was 6:06, so he was within the range of 4 to 6 plus the 30 seconds. Mark Sims was approximately, because he was well within, I think he was around 5:12, just a little bit over 5, so he was also good. Karen was at 4:03, which I believe is a little short.
Yep. Okay. So for this evening, go ahead and send another private message vote, or I should say your first private message vote for the evening to Justin, as he is our vote counter. You may vote between Wes and Mark Sims. And at this time, we will now move on into table topics with John Vessels. John.
Well, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Tonight, I'm going to be your host for Table Topics, and Table Topics is that challenge to speak off the cuff. I'm going to give you some people a few questions. I'm going to ask you, you're going to have to speak for 1 to 2 minutes, and we ask you to use the word of the day to qualify for a ribbon. And we want to test to see how you can speak, how well you can speak off the cuff and just answer a question and let us know your thoughts. I mean, and this is a performance thing. It helps you in social situations. It helps you in business and in interviews, learning to talk without having to concentrate or think about it too long. Just jump in there and speak. So for my first question, I'm going to ask Justin. You've been in Toastmasters now a little bit, and you've given a couple of speeches. So how are you evaluating your progress in Toastmasters, and what is an example of something you feel like you've already improved on?
Thank you, Mr. Topic Master, John. Well, one way I look at my improvement during Toastmasters is my prepared speeches. I look at the format, the structure, the organization, how clear am I during my prepared speeches? How well do I communicate my overall content of my prepared speeches? Also, table topics. How well can I communicate during the table topics? How well can I, off the cuff, come up with a story or an idea of what's going on? And I feel like Neo in the Matrix going to the oracle to see if I am the one. By going to Toastmasters, preparing my speeches, I feel and I know I am the one. Thank you, Topic Master.
Well, you are the one, Justin. Here we go. Thanks, sir. My next question is going to go to Mr. Schroeder. So, Dago, would you mind timing him?
Sure thing.
Thank you, sir. So, Mr. Schroeder, tell us about a time you had a project and how you judged your progression through achieving that project.
Okay, had a project and judged my progression through it. I'm actually going to pick a project that in some senses I guess was a failure, in that it was the previous job that I had gotten laid off from after 15 months, but it wasn't because of the performance. I have been a computer programmer for a very long amount of time and was suddenly thrust into a job that was very, very different. It was almost a customer support position. I was liaison between customers and engineering. It was something that was entirely new to me. I've never had to be on both sides where I could look at code, find out what was wrong with code, but couldn't fix the code, had to go to somebody else to get the code fixed. And I really didn't have an oracle that could tell me how to do this job either, because there was nobody else in the group that was in a similar position. They had been either constantly in support or in other roles. So nobody had come really quite out of development the way I had. But the way I approached it was, quite frankly, I enjoy a lot of the aspects of doing the development. And it turns out that I had a lot of skills being a developer that they did not have. There were a lot of questions that they would ask about code that they couldn't answer, that with my experience and my knowledge of code, I could. And so ultimately what I ended up doing was using the skills that I had, that I came with, that really were not, I guess we would say, normally germane to that particular position, to answer and solve problems that previously all the members of this group had been incapable of doing. So in that sense, I think I was very successful at accomplishing what was a new role for me. And I thought I fit in fairly well with the group. I think they were unfortunately pretty sorry to see me go when there was a layoff. The particular layoff, I think everybody that had been associated with the previous project was tainted and had to go. I don't even think they knew what I was working on at the time at which it happened. But if I had to pick a project to describe, that would probably be it at this point. John.
Thank you, Mark. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Mr. Giles, you ready? All right. Wes, when he was giving his icebreaker tonight, talked about genius and talked about one aspect where you just keep plugging away and creating and creating and creating and hope that one piece sticks, kind of thing. And that's my question to you. What is one thing that you like to work on that you just try to be prolific and get more out to see what really works for you?
Thank you.
You are on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Topic Master. I will tell you that through my life, there was one period where I thought I was going to be a Picasso, a Michelangelo, a Beethoven, a Mozart. I was going to be one of those guys, Einstein. Who could it be? And it was in regard to computer programming. And, you know, through high school, you know, computer programming had just really had started. So not every high school had it. My school had it, and I was in love with it. I was ready to work it and put the hours in and get it. I felt like I was very in tune with it. I wouldn't say that I was necessarily an oracle for other people to come to in regard to it, but definitely I felt like I knew it. I felt it. I could connect. unfortunately, that wasn't something that ended up coming to fruition. I pushed and I went through, and after high school, went to college, and in a community college, I aced all these computer programming courses, and I felt like this was really where I was headed. And then I transferred to a university, and it slowly came to a stalling, and then finally a stop. And I don't want to say that it was because I didn't have the work ethic and I didn't have the interest. It was partly because just the time of my life where my health kind of failed me. And that, in combination with having some difficulty with making that transition to a university, those things kind of pared things down for me, and it shot me in a different direction. It didn't happen the way I wanted to, but it was a great time of my life. I loved it, and I really felt like I was going to be that person with that great creativity as far as programming was concerned. Sometimes it works for you, sometimes it doesn't. Right now, Toastmasters is probably the one thing that I feel like I'm heading in that direction. Back to you, Mr. Topic Master.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Speaking about programming in the dark ages, way before your time, probably still too. In my high school algebra class, we've got basically a big calculator, but I was all determined to deal with this, and I learned to do punch cards and program that thing to do some serious calculations. I mean, I wasn't doing calculus or anything crazy, but there was a day when we used punch cards to program a computer, and that's so far gone, I can't believe it. Hey, Tiffany, would you like to do a table topics?
Sure. Yeah.
Yay, it's so good to see you.
It's
Been
good to see
ages.
y'all.
What's your genius and what is projects that's going on in your life right now? And yes, I remember COBOL.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. So the genius that I guess is going on in my life right now is I have a new job. I have switched from a job that I had for years to now I'm in a management position again after probably 12 years. And I am trying to tackle inventory of 4 different bars and in one building, but I've got a lot of inventory that has gone stale. And so I'm trying to get some recompensation or compensation for that. I wouldn't necessarily call it genius, but it definitely involves problem solving, which is something that I always enjoy doing. It's few and far between when I get a task that's something I can really get my hands dirty and feel good at the outcome. But I certainly do enjoy having a difficult task that feels very fulfilling. There's no oracle to give me any answers. There's not even the previous bar manager is around to answer any of my questions. I've got to figure this all out on my own. And so far, for the last 6 weeks, it's been pretty fulfilling. So thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Tiffany. Good seeing you again. I know what you're talking about. In my IT world, I do administration, and sometimes I have to solve problems and go through a server and look at code and do all kinds of things to figure out what happened. And that to me is a lot of fun. That to me is a challenge. I love dealing with the logic and tracking everything down and trying to find, there it is, right there. That's what caused the world to be sour today. Well, everybody, thank you. That is the end of my table topic session. I'd like to go ahead and call for a timers report. Did everybody qualify on time?
I am pleased to report that everyone qualified on time.
All right, thanks, sir. And Mr. Grammarian, Justin, did everybody use Oracle, the word of the day?
Yes, everybody did.
All right, great, thank you. So now I'd like to call for a vote on the best table topics master or tangled topics contestant tonight. And it's between Justin, who talked about how he's evaluating his current table topics, Mark on how he gauges projects, Rob on what is his genius and what does he keep working on, and Tiffany, what is her genius and what's going on for her. So if you would take a moment, send your vote to Justin by private chat. And now we're going to move on to our general evaluator portion of the meeting, and that is going to be, and I'd already forgot, Rob Giles. Yay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Topic Master. This portion of our meeting is meant for feedback and evaluation for both our prepared speakers as well as the meeting as a whole. And we're going to get reports from our duty holders, not all of them because we've been getting some reports, but we'll get duty holder reports from at least 3 people. And we will also get the one evaluator and then a round robin for the other 2 speakers. And then finally, my own evaluation of the meeting from start to finish. So that's how we'll do it. And that's what we'll be doing in this portion of the meeting. The first thing that we are going to do is go to our evaluator for our prepared speech. And that would be for the Icebreaker of Wes Edwards. And his evaluator is Mr. Dagan Newland. Dagan, it's yours.
All right, thank you, Rob. So, and of course, thank you, Wes, for that speech. The method I'm going to use to evaluate your speech is going to be the saw, heard, felt method. So things I saw about, things I heard, and how I felt. So first of all, what I saw a great presence, for the most part, and for the camera. Again, I'm gonna get to that for the most part in a minute. You look confident, you were relaxed while giving your speech. So overall, just great presence there. But the one thing I like for you to work on presence-wise is the eye contact, because I know you're looking off to the side for your notes and stuff like that. But maybe if you were somehow able to put your notes more towards front of you, or maybe put your, I'm assuming on your phone on Zoom here, maybe you could mount, put your notes in front of you, maybe mount your camera a little higher, maybe if possible. That way you're looking more towards us while you're giving speech. So if you refer to your notes, it won't look as so much, your eyesight going away from the audience, so to speak, here on the Zoom. And what I heard a really great speech that was well put together. I had a great opening, talking about the geniuses, the different geniuses, the artists, and kind of relating that to the business you started. So I thought that was really good. And of course, the whole body, all the information you gave us about the information from the book was really good. The only thing I would like to see from the herd standpoint was maybe have a little bit stronger conclusion. You had a really great open, really good body, but maybe the conclusion could have been a little better. Kind of recapped it all together, stay a little more facts that you just told us in the body, and you even restate the title of the book, which was really good to do. Really good to do in the very first part. Let's know where you got the information from. That's always good, but kind of just restate in the very end in case somebody missed it, and would be able to put that down in case they wanted to go back and look at it again. And of course, what I heard, what I felt. You're obviously passionate about this book and all the information that you received from it, and that that you were using it to learn and better yourself and to be able to be more successful in your business. So I can see, with this book, with the information from this book, you can be the oracle of your own business. So thank you for the speech there, Wes, and back to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Dagan. We appreciate that, and I'm sure Justin appreciates that evaluation. At this time, before we move into our round robins, just because that's a different format, I would like to ask our timer, did Dagan qualify on time as far as evaluation is concerned?
Dagan qualified at just a shade over 2:30.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. If you have any comments for Dagan's evaluation, please go ahead and send a private chat to him regarding his evaluation of Wes. At this point, we will go into a round robin, first for Mark Sims and then for Karen Lee. And what I'm going to ask everybody to do is I'm going to go around the room and I'm going to ask you individually. And toward the end, I'll probably ask Tiffany if she can add some insight as well. Perhaps we will find that she is the oracle, even though Justin is the one who is labeled as such. But what I'm going to do is also ask Mr. Timer, Mark Schroeder, can you time 30 seconds for me for each of these people so that we can get through this fairly quickly? I figure if we do 30 seconds for each, then we will, get it done in about 5 minutes for each person.
All right, if I'm going to do that, let me say that what I will do is we will go directly to red at 30 seconds.
Okay,
Is that
I'm good with
acceptable?
that.
Okay.
Yep. So if you get the red, please finish it up right then. Okay, so we're going to start off with Mark Sim's speech, and his was the Tall Tales speech. And I will start with our Toastmaster, Mr. Lee King. Lee, can you give us one thing that you thought Mark did well and one thing that he might be able to think about tweaking?
Yes, Mark, I believe that you did much better with your stage presence and use of gestures tonight compared to the first time you gave the speech. With that said, my suggestion would be that you try to back up away from your camera a little bit. I think you're a little too close to some of the gestures that you were trying to give us were a little bit occluded. But other than that, great speech. Glad to see you using more of those body gestures. Just try to find that better, more happy medium. Back to General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Lee. Next, I would like to go to the next of our big three, which is our topic master, John Vessels. John, can you, or would you please provide a positive aspect of Mark's speech and something that he can think about working on?
Well, I guess I have to be positive. No, I'm just teasing. Mark, I see a lot. I got you a lot. I didn't see much improvement tonight. I think you presented your whole speech much better. It was organized a little better and you presented it better. So I think that your practice or progress is definitely getting up there. So I think you did a much better job. I can't think of anything negative about anything else I wanted you to do with it off the top of my head. I thought you did a really good job and I see the improvement. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, John. Next, I'm going to go to our evaluator, Dagan Newland. Dagan, would you please provide some feedback for Mark Sims, both positive and constructive?
Well, I don't have too much to say because I was in the middle of trying to figure out my evaluation for the speech, but I was kind of trying to pay attention at the same time, and I definitely could hear the improvement. I mean, I wasn't really watching visually, but I definitely could hear the improvement and notice some things you changed. So, so in that's a good thing because since I wasn't really watching visually, I wasn't really noticing anything to improve or anything like that. But overall, definitely improvement and really great speech.
Thank you very much, Dagan. Next, I'm going to ask our other contestant, Karen Lee. Karen, would you please provide some feedback for Mark?
Mark, I thought your speech was very funny. And I think also I'm going to echo what Lee said, just some of the gestures were filling up too far forward with the near the camera. But I also did enjoy your speech and I thought it was very funny. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you very much, Karen. Next is going to be our other speaker for this evening, and that would be Wes. Wes, would you please provide some feedback for Mark, positive, and hopefully maybe something, a little tidbit that might be something he can think about tweaking.
I think your story was great. I think your delivery with your story is really fun. And I thought the ending of it was pretty hilarious. My only feedback would be just to echo the closeness of the camera. I think the closeness of the camera takes away a lot of the presentation and whatnot. And it's kind of like we're getting this kind of a view like that, you know? So that's my only feedback.
Thanks so much, Wes. We appreciate that. Next, I am going to go to he who is named the oracle. That is Justin Faust. Justin, would you please provide some feedback for for Mark Sims regarding his tall tale speech.
Yes. Mark Sims, the speech was hilarious. I really enjoyed it. It was very funny. One thing I would say to include is like your gestures, especially when I want to knock him out, like really like sell, like I want to knock my boss out, sell it out, like really sell it. That's one thing I would include. So great speech though.
Thank you very much, Justin. Next would be our timer, Mr. Mark Schroeder. Mark, would you please provide some feedback for Mark?
I'm going to suggest a different approach to the camera. Raise the laptop up, put it on a box, change the angle. I think that would make the biggest difference. It's looking up at your nose. It needs to be just flat raised. With regard to the line that you said, just took another job, bye, the bye was lost. I would recommend just took another job, bye, or something like that, to call it, to give emphasis on that word bye, because I lost it otherwise. And I did notice loudmouth, foul mouth. I don't know if there's a better way to not use the word mouth twice or whether that's actually good. But those were my comments.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mark. Next, I go to our guest, former member, Tiffany. Tiffany, do you have anything that you would like to add as far as some good feedback and some constructive feedback for Mark?
Sure. What a treat to hear a contest speech that's being worked on. It's pretty awesome. I would like to say that I really love the deadpan delivery that just adds to the humor. The only recommendation I would give is, since it's tall tale, maybe add some superlatives. I always thought that just the more you go over the top with the tall tales, the more obvious that it is that it's a real story that you're spinning, like the jerkiest blowhard, or just like Justin said, with that really go over the top with the gestures. That'd be my only suggestion.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Appreciate it. For myself, I echo pretty much what everybody has said here. I don't think that I could say much more. I think it's good, some good tweaking, constructive ideas for you, Mark. And then I just want to say that I always love your speeches. Even your non-humorous speeches always have a tinge of it in there, which is it's a gift that not everybody has. But this one, I think you did a fantastic job. Again, I like you just had punch after punch after punch after punch, which just drives it all home. The whole part of the fact that surely this didn't happen. Surely it didn't happen. Not all of those things. So I think you're doing great. Keep going, and we'll see you on Saturday. Next is going to be round robin for our other contestant, who is in the humorous speech contest, and that is Karen Lee. So we're going to go around the room to provide her with some feedback. Hopefully we can all come up with something that's positive and something that is constructive. So we're going to go through that again, and I'm going to try to do it in the same order. So start preparing. First, we're going to start off with our Toastmaster for the evening, Mr. Lee King. Lee, can you please, or would you please provide that feedback for Karen Lee?
Yes, Karen, very well delivered speech. You definitely have improved. I can see that the speech has been much more fluid. I think you feel much more comfortable with this speech at this time. The one thing that I'd recommend is, it looks like your resting hand position is kind of mid-body. I would consider at times putting your hands down to the side and then raising them back up when you're actually wanting to emphasize a point. But other than that, very good work. Thank you, Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Lee. Next is our topic master, John Vesselis. John, would you please provide some feedback for Karen Lee?
Hey, Karen. So I did think that you've added some points and some cleaned up some places in your speech when you gave it this time that made it flow a little better and was more consistent and more humorous. And I think that you've made improvements on your speech, and I just keep practicing. And I guess it's Saturday is when contest is. So you got another day or so that you can work on it. But I think you've just improved a lot on it. What can you improve on? Oh, there was like one point, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but you kind of had a little bit of a long pause there for a second when you were in the hospital. I can't remember. I'm sorry. I forgot. And when you were kind of in the room, that you just kind of had too long a pause before you delivered the next line. And that was the only thing I can think of. I can see having pauses for, humorous moments, but this one just seemed a little awkward. That's it.
Thank you very much, John. Next, we are moving on to our evaluator for the evening. And I know that he's got something, even though he was working on his own evaluation for his speaker. We're going to go to Dagan Newton. Dagan, take it away.
Yes, definitely restate some of the people saying definitely more fluid, flowed a lot better. But the only thing I think because of that, though, I believe he fell short of time, didn't make the time. So just the timing issue. But overall, I guess you could add some more points in there. But I guess since it was more fluid this time, I think that's what the issue for the time. So back to you, Rob.
Thank you very much, Dagan. I may be varying from my last order, but I think I was moved into the contestants at this point. So I'm going to ask Mr. Mark Sims, would you please provide some feedback, positive and constructive, for Karen Lee?
Karen, I think you were more comfortable with the speech this time. I think I've seen improvement in it. I think it was a new story early on, talking about jumping like a grasshopper. That's new, so it's good for the speech evolution to be dynamic. I thought I saw a couple of times where you were glancing at notes, totally understandable. I do not know if the judges will count off for that or not, but at least be cognizant of it. But good luck Saturday.
Thank you very much, Mark. Next is our other speaker for this evening, and that was Wes Edwards. Wes, would you please provide some feedback for Karen Lee?
Okay, so my feedback would be that I enjoyed the story. I mean, it was a horrible incident for you, but you did make it into something that was a good story. So I appreciate hearing it. My feedback would be that I don't know if standing up and standing away from the webcam necessarily helped. I think the idea of it's good, but the sound kind of got lost somewhere in there. I couldn't hear you as well whenever you stood up and stood away from it. So you might want to have like a microphone if you do, but that was my feedback.
Thank you very much, Wes. Next is going to be our Oracle, Justin Faust. Justin, would you please provide some feedback for Karen?
Yes. Karen, very good speech, definitely an improvement. Your speech definitely flowed a lot better. It was, the content was a lot funnier, I think, this go round. The only thing I would say to work on is you did have a few pauses, and also the timing issue. You may want to be cognizant of the time, because if you don't qualify on it, then the speech doesn't count. So that's all.
Thank you so much, Justin. Next is going to be our timer for the evening, Mark Schroeder. Mark, would you please provide some feedback for Karen Lee?
Thank you, Rob. First of all, yes, much smoother. I like that. But there, just like John noticed, there was a pause. I noticed one as well. And I tripped over my suitcase. That one sounds pretty unnatural compared to, and I tripped over my suitcase. So be careful of that pause. I figured out what my issue is with the 120 versus the 135. I don't know what 120 means either. That is severe. According to the web, that can cause things like confusion, seizures, and comas. Somehow work that in as to how severe that is, because that's what's been missing. I think that's going to be it for me.
Thank you very much, Mark. And then our guest for the evening, Tiffany, do you have anything that you would like to add for Karen Lee?
Yeah, I really enjoyed Karen's facial expressions, like when she looks down at her hand, her eyes kind of got big. And I really like the delivery of just breathe. I guess the only thing that I would suggest is the three things that she says, like the just breathe, and you only have to drink 7 glasses of water. Who knew? Just maybe kind of a like a duh kind of response to that would be my suggestion.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tiffany. For myself, I will say my thoughts run similarly along a couple of things. One, that I felt that there were a couple, 2, maybe 3 pauses at varying times that seemed like they were extra long, or they weren't quite intended as a add or amplification for a punchline. So just keep working on the whole content, and I think that will go away. If you have something that you want to add punch and you need that pause, just make sure it's appropriate in the right place, like Mark was saying. And then overall, I think it was smoother. I think that your structure is good. I think you got rid of some things that you didn't necessarily need, and you changed some of the wording. So I think that you've added things and made things seem a little bit more natural for you throughout the entire speech. So I thought you did a fantastic job. Okay, that's going to be it for our evaluations. I know that both our contestants, our Dallas Social Toastmaster contestants for the Area 33 contest, are very thankful for all the feedback from tonight and previous meetings where we were able to also provide feedback. And they're all growing. And what I would say, even though I want to say it later, is that if you can come and support them as audience members, guests at the Zoom, it's going to be at 1 p.m. And I will send out an email with that Zoom information so that you can come on and support them as they give their speech. As far as our evaluation portion of the meeting, I'm going to move into our duty holders to give their reports. And I'm going to start with our timer, but I'm not going to ask him about time. I'm going to ask him if he could please give his counter report. Mr. Mark Schroeder.
Let me make sure. Yep, I'm off mute. Okay. For counter, Justin, I caught a total of 2 ums, which is really, really small. One was early on and one was during your table topics. Lee, very much clean. I'm not sure that I caught you with anything at all anywhere. Dagan, as usual, counted 7. Caught you with 1 so right at the beginning of your duty. For us, that was it for tonight. Wes caught you with a total of 4 us. 4 is not bad for a very first speech. That's actually pretty low. A lot of people are a lot higher than 4 for the very first one. And what else did I notice? I noticed a kind of, kind of like, I want to say lessons. Maybe that is the right word. But you use kind of like as opposed to just, it was a kind of lesson or it was a lesson. Just one time. Almost more grammarian maybe, but like is a filler word for some people. Mark Sims, pretty quiet for you, nothing there. John Vessels, 2 us. Rob, I caught you with a total of 3 us tonight. Tiffany, I'm afraid I'm going to have to tell you too. I got you with 7 us. So something to look at and work on. That's good. Those are the counts for tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Counter. Next is going to be our grammarian, and that is Justin Faust, aka the Oracle. Justin, would you please give your report for the word of the day and what you heard as far as grammar was concerned this evening?
Yeah, so for the word of the day, everyone used it during the table topics. I think Wes also used it during his prepared speech. Very good. I heard it throughout the night. Several people used the word oracle. So great job, everyone. I heard a lot of good grammar tonight. I was doing both grammar and vote counting, so I wasn't able to pick up on everything. But Wes used a lot of good grammar throughout his speech. Darwinian, evolution, genius, really good words. Let me think. Tiffany had some good words during her table topic speech. so did Rob. And I think that's all for me for Grammarian. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grammarian. Next is our posture monitor, and that is distinguished Toastmaster, Mr. Lee King. Lee, would you please provide your report as posture monitor?
Yes, overall good posture. I believe I really notated the things that I suggested to our speakers already. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to report. Back to Mr. John Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Lee. We appreciate that. Thank you to all of our duty holders and those reports. Those are what help us, especially in this time. It's something that I think that we as a club need to try to figure out something. Do some brainstorming to see if we can get some noise for posture, some noise for using ahs and crutch words. I think that the immediacy of that is really what helps us to improve, but obviously the report is also good. As far as other things that I saw for the meeting, one, I think Mark, as facilitator tonight, you did a fantastic job with introducing the meeting and giving us all the little tidbits as far as Zoom is concerned. You talked about pinning the timer. You showed us the agenda, showed us where we could find that. I thought that was great. You also even gave us some corrections on the agenda, which is always important, especially for guests when they come in. So I thank you for that. Lee, the theme I thought was good. It's something that I think that we all, as Toastmasters and as humans, need to kind of think about. And we need to think about, where are we? What's our progress? How have we been doing in Toastmasters and in life? Something for us to evaluate. So I thought that it was very appropriate, very good for everybody. So I thought you picked a good theme and you gave us good information regarding that during your time as Toastmaster. Our duty holders and their descriptions at the beginning, very good, very detailed, fine job for all of you. And our evaluator introducing our prepared speaker, the icebreaker. Dagan, you did a good job of introducing the goals for Wes. I loved all three of our speeches. We had good speeches tonight, so we had three, so we always love that. So thank you for speaking, all three of you. Our table topics, I thought, John, you did a fantastic job with connecting your topic questions to the theme of the day. And I thought that the questions were good. They were provocative as far as us starting to think inwardly about our past or our present as far as our progress is concerned. So I thought you did a fantastic job with that. All of our topic speakers, I think, did a fantastic job. I can only imagine that voting was tough for all of us in that regard. As far as our evaluator, Dagan Newland, I love that you changed the method to saw, heard, felt. Seldom used, but I think it's a good change up, and I think it provides a different aspect because it involves different senses, and it's very applicable to pretty much any speech, but some speeches more so than others. But I think that it's good that we bring that in. So you did a good job with that. Your evaluation had both a positive and constructive feedback for each part of it, the saw, heard, and the felt. So you did a fantastic job with that, and you brought details to it, which is important. The only thing that I might suggest, which is tough, is especially for that, is to give a recap. And again, it might be tougher for the saw, heard, felt method, but something to think about. Our duty holder reports, detailed. Some things are tough, especially in the Zoom setting. I know it's tough to figure out posture and look for gestures and things like that. But I think it's important for us to try and to encourage people to use gestures and to try to use this little square that we're in and enhance our speech in that way. And I think we did get a lot of great feedback, as Lee pointed out, throughout the evaluation round robin wise. So that was great. As far as the other two duty holders, yeah, again, detailed reports. Always love examples, so good job with that. I think the meeting as a whole ran very well. I was very happy to see that we had a former member and current guest. And who knows, maybe this will inspire her Maybe she will go see the Oracle and the Oracle will tell her, you need to go to Dallas Social Toastmasters. So we'll see about that. But at this point, I'm going to conclude my time as the general evaluator. I will call for a vote, one last vote for the evening, and that is for the best of the big three. And who are the big three? Well, the big three are our Toastmaster, Mr. Lee King, our topic master, Mr. John Vessels, and our general evaluator, yours truly, Rob Giles. If you would please go ahead and send your vote in a private chat to our vote counter for the evening, which is Justin Faust. Let him know who you thought did the best as far as the best of the big three was concerned, and he will tally those up. In the meantime, while you are doing that, I'm going to pass the meeting over. Oh, there's one other thing that I do want to say, and this goes back to our Toastmaster. Just wanted to add this in because I did write it down. Lee, I thought it was great job with having that moment, that minute between speakers for us to send private messages of encouragement and that sort of thing. Other clubs do that on a regular basis. We don't necessarily do it. We do encourage the comments, but we don't generally take it, some time to allow people to do that. So I thought that was great. At this point, I will pass it over to that same person, our club president. Please help me to welcome Mr. Lee King for the business portion of our meeting.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. Let's just start with introduction to our former member who's joining us, and for our newer members, I guess this would be a good, I guess, but nevertheless, Tiffany, please take a moment and share what you thought about the meeting and go from there.
Well, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. It sure is good to see everybody, but clearly there's another, I'm out of practice. So it's something that I would like to get back into again. It's something I've definitely missed for several months. I don't know how, especially this is the middle of concert season, so I don't know if I'd be able to meet with you guys every Thursday, but I'm definitely going to try to put it in my rotation of weekly events. So we'll see. You'll be seeing more of me for sure, but I'm not sure how often I can be here, but it is nice. I remember this being called a comfortable place to fail. I think that's what it was. and that always kind of struck with me is, yeah, if you need practice, this is a good place to do it because you're always met with applause. Everybody's always happy to see you. And from what I've seen from you guys, there's definitely lots of improvement. So this is a good place to hone those skills. But,
Well, thank you. Please come join us, visit us as much as you can. Always nice to have you. A couple of brief announcements. Yes, the area contest is Saturday, if you haven't noticed already. And Rob will be sending out a flyer with the Zoom link and again the time of 1 o'clock. The only other announcement is just that dues are due. It's $75 for this next 6 months. Just as a reminder, we will continue to meet on Zoom as long as the county is red. And unfortunately, we don't meet at Ozona after Thanksgiving, from Thanksgiving through the holidays anyway. So when we really took that into consideration and considering that the numbers are increasing, not decreasing, we did feel like we would be on Zoom until at least the first part of January, meaning that we can just continue the Zoom rate. However, if the numbers went down, then we'll reassess at that time and go from there. Just for the benefit of our guests, we do pay very little for the room at Ozona, and they do book that room a lot over the holiday seasons for company parties and things like that. We traditionally move out and find another place. This year, if that happened, we would just find another place that would host it like we usually do over those couple of weeks between the two holidays. Thanksgiving and Christmas, I guess New Year's as well. And with that, let's go ahead and hear from our vote counter, Justin.
Yes, you have come to see the Oracle, Neo. Prepared speeches, West 1. For topic master, Tiffany 1. And for the best of the big 3 was John. Thank you, Lee.
And I believe Dagan got best evaluator.
Yes,
No,
he
I
did.
think it was over time, wasn't I?
You were not over time.
Oh,
Nope, you were valid.
okay.
You were just over 2:30, not 3:30.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, that concludes our meeting. Thank you for coming.
As your Zoom facilitator, I will now stop the recording in 3, 2,